Our intro music is provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, John. Some people say yes, some people say no. I say I don't know. Well, in the news, what can I say? I've been warning people about what would happen with all these tariffs, that our country will start going in the recession. Now they're talking, well, first they were saying it was going to happen late 2019. Now they're saying it could even happen a lot sooner. A lot of things is causing it. One is, well, the tariffs. I mean, you know, you're going to see very shortly, now I've been saying this for a long time, that costs of goods are going to start going up. You're going to see that. And also, you know, for the amount of jobs that, well, our stimulus created, you know what? That's kind of a far-fetched little story there. And what I'm going to say is, you know, you got to have a little bigger paycheck each pay period because of what Trump did. But what they didn't tell the people when they did this, well, in April, you got to pay back that money you got. So what's going to happen when you file your tax return? You're going to find, well, a lot of people, not the wealthy people, but the average income or lower income people are going to owe some money. Now, climate changes. Well, the government's about ready to come out with a report, and it's not looking as rosy. You know, I don't believe this story is, well, you know, the weather comes and goes and it changes. Yeah, it's changing, but it's not for, really for the good. Hey, tonight we got a great guest. We're going to be talking, like all month we've been talking about UFOs. We got Derick Turner on, who'll be on right after this.
Please check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio website at www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Also, if you want to keep our show free of advertising, just hit the donate button. Give a buck or two. Remember, all prior shows are always free to listen to. We at Night Dreams Talk Radio thank you for your support.
And please do go to www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Check out our web, check out our gallery, and, you know, if you want to help pay for our bandwidth and keep this commercial free of, well, unless you want to hear about 20 minutes every hour of advertising, hey, donate a buck or two. That'll help pay for our bandwidth. Hey, Derick, how is your, week wrapping up?
It is fantastic. So thanks again, Gary, for having me on the show tonight. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. It's a little cold here in the Northeast, but other than that, everything is really good.
Well, in my family, because everybody works, I hate to say it, we're going to have our Turkey Day tomorrow. And,
nice.
Well, yes and no. I mean, how can I say it? I'm at the age where young kids I'm not going to say it. But anyway, yeah, you know, the weather is changing everywhere. You know, I'll be honest with you. I lived in this place up here, what they call, well, Gig Harbor, Washington, now for about 20 years. I have a little mini farm, Derick, and I kind of put like a little fish pond before you come up to the house. And every year, that sucker would freeze solid, all about 18, 20 inches of the height of it would be hard as a rock. And every year, we'd have a bet how many of the fish would come back to life when it thaws out. Well, it started like 2 years ago. 2 years ago, it got a little layer of ice on it, maybe a quarter inch. And that only lasted for a couple of weeks, and then that was gone. Last winter, I didn't get any ice on it at all. If I did, it was like a skimming of ice. But then in April, we broke the craziest weather temperature every year in the Seattle Gig Harbor area. We hit 91 degrees for one day. Crazy.
Wow. That is crazy. So we had a late winter here in the Northeast, so we had very little in the way of cold weather and snow until we got to March. And we had snow through March and into April last year, which is really outside the ordinary. And even this year, too, the weather is just really crazy. It's usually not this cold. So we had snow last week. It's rare that we have snow in November. But we had about 4 inches of snow last Thursday. So it's definitely way different than I remember it in years past. So it makes you wonder what exactly is going on.
Well, something's going on. Long as it doesn't happen like in June or July. If we get 4 inches there, we know something is going on, Derick. Really, then I'd be
That's
scared.
for sure.
Now, we're going to be talking about UFOs, but before we do, I want to tell you a real quick story, which I told you a little bit about before we went on the air. One of my hosts on my network, Michael W. Hall, who was a Superior Court Judge Pro Tem. He is a practicing attorney. I got to watch what I say here. Attorney in Washington State. And he runs a small little UFO I-team group, to try to get documentation about UFOs and, things like that. Well, on August 27th, 28th, 29th, they went to Mount Adams, and some strange things happened, Derick. During the night, I think it was like on the 28th, they saw a light come towards them. They didn't hear any sound, so they know it's not a helicopter. It stopped. It kind of pulsated some light out. And then some of the people who were in the group said they saw like a blue laser light come out on the side. And they thought that was kind of rather interesting because that's a hot spot here in Washington for UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, later, Derick, that night, Michael goes to bed in a little camping trailer with somebody else there. They were sharing. Temperature was probably close to like maybe 10 degrees, 20 degrees at night, really cold. And he sleeps with one of these, sleep aid machines to help him breathe.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, it shuts off. And he wakes up. And, they figured, it shouldn't have shut off. The battery had plenty of power. They're running a 12-volt, marine type battery. Well, they decided, the guy, his friend decided they'll change out the battery. He decided to go out right next to the camper trailer. They had a little porta potty set up. Now, he just went out there to go twinkle, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, somehow...
That's a pretty short trip.
Well, it was not, because when he came back in, somehow he lost an hour and a half.
Wow.
Okay, like unaccountable. Now, where are you going to be standing around 10, 20 degrees? I mean, outside. You're not going to stand around very long.
Sure.
So he lost about an hour and a half, totally unaccountable for. Now, they also documented on the machine because the machine was off for an hour and a half. The other thing it has, he wears a watch, Derick, that has phosphorus coating on all the numbers. So it glows for about 20 to 30 minutes in bright light, after you come out from bright light to darkness, but then it fades out. He said when he woke up, they didn't have no lights on in there. That sucker was glowing like it never glowed before.
Wow.
Now, that was kind of strange, but then it gets stranger. One of the guys, because they were so cold, they couldn't sleep in their tents because it was chilly. So some of the people decided to go sleep in their vehicles. Now, the one guy with his son goes into his vehicle. It's a 2-year-old vehicle. He starts it up periodically, to get warm. But then all of a sudden, like, the battery was dead, which, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I debunked that one really fast because, even a 2-year-old car, the battery being really cold, starting it up, shutting it off, starting it up, it's not going to charge the battery enough. So when it got cold, it probably couldn't put out the current to start the car. Well, the next morning, all of a sudden, I don't know what type of equipment they had, but all of a sudden they started noticing, like their compasses were going crazy. So they traced it to the car, and the car all of a sudden was magnetized. So they backed the car up out of the area. Now, where the car was sitting wasn't magnetized, but the car was like all of a sudden a bar magnet. It had its north and south. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of strange. Then...
That is strange.
Michael all of a sudden noticed like this little pyramid triangle thing on his wrist, left wrist, that had all these funny little puncture marks. And he thought that was kind of strange. Well, a couple weeks ago, I had him on my show, and we were talking about what happened. I said, hey, you got all this stuff from going out there. Do you have a compass? And he goes, yeah, hang on for a minute. He comes back with a compass. And I said, okay, I want you to put it by your left wrist. It goes crazy. Then I said, okay, put it to your right wrist. It doesn't do anything. I said, okay, now you were mentioning you wore steel-toed boots. Put it by your right boot. Nothing happened. Put it by his left one. It went crazy.
Wow.
I got a funny feeling that pulsing light and whatever happened in the middle of the night, I think they had an encounter or something. And I don't know if he was abducted or what, but I don't know how all of a sudden, his wrist would cause a compass to go crazy. I don't know how the car would get magnetized. The guy even took it to the dealership, and they checked it out, and they thought, oh, this is really weird. We never seen a car magnetized like this. And they went out to the dealership, the mechanics and all that stuff, started checking all the new cars and old cars and whatever they had. None of them were magnetized.
Wow. It's really funny. One of the articles that I did on my website has to do with abduction. So if you talk about the alien abduction phenomenon, it starts in the 1960s with Betty and Barney Hill. And at the time, boy, they really went through a tough time where, they're kind of labeled as nuts and crackpots.
They did.
Unfortunately, they really had to live through that time to kind of get where we're at now. So thanks to the research of Bud Hopkins and John Mack and even Dr. David Jacobs, we know a lot more about this phenomenon. And as the evidence piles up, so if you listen to any of the talks that Bud Hopkins or John Mack did, or even Jacobs, you find out that what you're describing is not rare by any means from the standpoint of a typical abduction scenario. So usually it starts with that type of thing where the abductee experiences some kind of strange lights in the sky, or sometimes it'll be in their home. And usually that's kind of like the breadcrumbs that lead to, all right, something may have happened here. And usually it takes some kind of regression to go back through that and really discover exactly what happened. And in most cases, it leads to quite a story, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. Now, wasn't Barney and Hill and his wife's car, if I remember right, too, their trunk was magnetized?
Yeah, their trunk was magnetized, and actually Barney's watch, as I recall it, actually stopped working. That was one of the ways they were able to pinpoint when it actually happened. So when you look at the leftover evidence, those are common things. So even if you talk about some of the phenomenon at Skinwalker Ranch, there's an incident that had to do with some bulls that were mysteriously moved into a metal storage container. And some of the evidence left behind from that incident was that storage container was highly magnetized. So what you're describing there is certainly not the first time I've heard that.
Oh, yeah. And that's what's scary, And, I get these people every so often will call up and say, well, you know what? Aliens are warm and they're fuzzy. They give off orbs. I was abducted on my bed, and all they did was show love to me. Well, how would they show love to you if they abducted you out of your car or out of your bed? It shows right off the bat they don't care about us. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that at the